Hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. Now in this tutorial I am continuing the work that I was doing on the ship design for a competition. So in this phase I've actually completed the initial modeling to the most part. I'm just fine-tuning certain aspects so I can actually start adding textures onto it. Now I did discover a couple of glitches when trying to do this process. Which was unfortunate with this software because it's a really good software. The unfortunate thing is that sometimes Modo seems to delete some of the textures once you've created them if you create a new texture. I have no idea how this happens, so if you guys have any feedback or any suggestions, I would greatly appreciate that because it would really help me out. Now that being said, a lot of the issues I was having last time have actually been resolved. It's mostly settings, and now that I understand Modo a lot better now, I've been able to address a lot of those issues as well. So this software is actually pretty good in comparison to Maya. Once you get used to the interface, it's actually really well designed. It's much more user friendly, I'd say, than Maya is in a lot of aspects. And other than the odd glitch, it's actually really not that bad, especially once you start using some of the textures and materials that they actually provide you and you start modifying those. All that actually helps save quite a bit of time. So I'm actually really impressed by this software. The only disappointing thing is the texturing, to be honest. Sometimes it applies, sometimes it doesn't. I've had some issues with that. I'm sure there's an easy explanation as to why that's occurring. I have not figured that out yet. So we'll see if maybe it's something I could fix next time. Sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't, essentially, and they'll just start working again. Now, what you're seeing me work on right now is the combination of about 7 hours of work. So I have 4 hours that were actually recorded. I lost the video footage on about the 2 to 3 hours of work that I did additionally. So as you can see, I'm actually working on the force field. Now there is actually a reasoning behind how this field is created, because this is supposed to be a time machine, and how it's actually working is it's actually projecting essentially an energy field that creates a pocket dimension in which the ship can actually go through and therefore move through time. I forget which video it was. There was a documentary I watched a while ago that actually looked at that as a possible method for which time travel could possibly be achieved, which I found very interesting, so I used that as an inspiration for this actual piece. Now, the way the ship is designed and the way this technology is designed is it's based off of, as long as you're in the ship and the field is being projected, you remain within the time that you're traveling. Leave any of those aspects though and you actually convert back to your original time, but in the location that you actually were. So this is essentially a safety feature in this conception of this time machine, which makes it very much a lot safer, because the whole process of this competition is that it's supposed to be a safe means and you're supposed to promote this as an actual product that does actually exist. So taking the story and developing it a little bit further than what they actually give you really does help figure out some of the nuances and how to actually portray some of these aspects in the design. So before I do anything else, I'm still working on the ship textures. It's really important that I finish the ship textures before I actually started moving on to the background elements that I'm currently working on. The background elements are just supposed to be there to essentially help showcase the product, and that's why I'm not spending as much time on it. I am still spending quite a bit of time though, but not as fine-tuning it as in the ship design. I did discover, once again, this is a small nuance with the differences between the softwares, is that unlike Maya, I have to click on a very specific aspect to get the transform and the skew to work uniformly. Even then though, I did end up with a couple of issues, but most of them were minor in comparison. So I just created essentially the background for which the ship can stand, and I'm doing some test renders right now to see how I can change the lighting, how I can change some of the background elements to make it look more appealing. I know that most of this room actually won't show up in the final renders, but it's still good to make sure it's fully fleshed out before actually doing this, because I do have a lot of effects that I need to add in the later render, and the best way to do that is to do some test renders before I actually finish up. So I spent quite a bit of time test rendering, working with the textures for the building to make sure that everything worked by itself before actually doing and adding some details like the platform in which this machine sits and fine-tuning the lights. I added some actual flashlights to it so that it's actually able to project it. And I added some lights within the room. Once again, very simple lighting effects that make it look a bit more futuristic. And playing with those, I did run into that same problem at this stage where essentially I was having issues trying to get some of those lights to work, because sometimes the textures would just disappear and not render, and then sometimes they would just magically start again. And right now I'm currently animating the rotation of the field. So it slowly builds up in speed, and I'm used to using the graph editor for animation purposes, because that's my formal training, is 3D animation and traditional animation. So at this point I'm doing some test renders to see how it looks, to make sure that the diffuse and the fading effects that I've added are actually showing up. In the end, I figured that out off camera, mainly because I spent actually at least a good 1 to 2 hours trying to figure that out. So this is the final 2 renders for what I have so far in this competition piece. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you and take care.